Hey guys, it's Susan from Tama Gems. Hope everyone is doing well. I want to show you a necklace that I made. I'm using gemstones and pearls. The bail is beaded and I'm using a beautiful Baroque fireball pearl. Let's get started. I want to show you how to make this. To get started making your elegant fireball necklace, you will need 19 strand bead along wire. You're going to need some crimp beads, and I'm using a number 1. You'll need some biwa pearls. These are like a nugget size. You'll need some citrine barrels or tubes, 2 biwa pearls that are center drilled right through the top to the bottom. Labradorite, you'll need 6 of these. Excuse me, and these are rondels. You will need your fireball pearl, a toggle, 2 jump rings. You'll need some pearls. These are about 8 millimeters. You'll need some amethyst chips. These are large. These are about 8 by 10 millimeters. You will also need some gold spacer beads. You'll need about 22 of those, and you will need your miyuki bugle number 2 6 millimeter bugle beads. These are called violet gold luster. And you will need your crimper. I'm using a pocket crimper because it's small and it fits my hand better. But you can use any size crimper that fits your hand. You'll also need some chain nose pliers, flush cutters, bent chain nose pliers, and you will need a ruler. I have one side laid out. So this is the beadwork for one side of the necklace. So I'm going to start with my bead. Oh, and I'm cutting about 24 inches of wire, and I have attached that to my stopper at the end. So now I'm going to start with the citrine tube, and then I have these little spacers. These are miyuki bugle beads. This is in like a purplish color. So because it's purple, I'm using purple amethyst, and I'm using these purple peacock colored keishi pearls. So I'm alternating with the tube, bead, tube, and I also want to put in some white, so I'm adding some biwa stick pearls, and again following the same pattern as tube, bead, tube, and I also have labradorite. These are labradorite rondels. So I wanted to add some of this or some sparkle. And then we're going to do tube, bead, tube. So far we have this. And let's continue on. Citrine, tube, bead, tube, and what I have here are amethyst chips, because this is actually a purple and yellow necklace. But again, I wanted some sparkle, so I'm adding gemstones. Pick up another tube, bead, tube, and then to offset this biwa pearl, I'm going to put on Baroque purlins instead down here, so everything doesn't look the same. I wanted to have a little bit of different aspects in the necklace, so I'm going to add this pearl here. Kind of just break up the pattern a little, and then continue on with our tube, bead, tube, and now we have our labradorite again. Let me see if I can just get this a little bit. There we go. So we have labradorite, and then we're going to add our tube, bead, tube. I have another labradorite. Now we need to start making the beaded bail. I cut 7 inches of the 19 strand bead along wire, stringing wire. And what I'm going to do first is add a crimp bead to the end. And I'm going to bring it down to the very end of my wire, like that, and crimp it. Then I'm going to add my bead, my gold spacer bead. I'm going to add my pearl. Then I'm going to add my gold spacer bead, add my crimp bead to the top of that. Then I'm going to put on 8 gold beads. Coming back around, I'm going to find my crimp bead right here, push this through, pull it down, go through my gold spacer bead, pull this down, okay, once it's tight like that, and this is going to be the front, you determine the front or the back of your pendant. So this is going to be the front. Then what I'm going to do is crimp my bead right in here, making sure that there's no space here, that everything is tight. So I'm going to crimp and crimp. Now what I'm going to do is cut off this end as close as I can to the bead. Necklace. So I have my beaded pearl that we made that I want to hang from here, but I'm going to add another bead here, and I'm going to add a larger bead next to this. And now I'm going to add my pearl, my beaded pearl bail, and see if that's going to work. I think that looks nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add another larger bead for the other side, and then the smaller bead, and add my labradorite, and let's see how this looks. I think that looks really nice, really pretty. Okay, so now we're going to continue up this side, but we're going to break it up a little bit so this side that we're going to string doesn't exactly match this side, just to give it some interest. So we're going to bring this down here, and now we're going to lay out the pattern for this side. Okay, so I've laid out my pattern for this side, and I want to keep the middle down here the same, so I'm going to add another labradorite to here, so I have 2 on each side. And then with this, I'm going to exchange the pearls for a biwa pearl, and the amethyst I'm going to use over on this side. I'm going to use the peacock colored one. I'm going to use the 2 amethysts up here next to the citrine. This is going to be a pearl. Right here is going to be a labradorite. I have a citrine, and then right here I'm going to finish with my biwa keishi pearl. Okay, so the middle is done down here. Now we're going to continue on up this side with a bead, and then it looks like we're going to add our tube, our bead, and our tube. We have another labradorite to add. Another tube, bead, tube, now we're going to add our stick pearl, and continue on with our tube, bead, tube, but instead of adding amethyst, I'm going to use my keishi pearl, okay, so that's what this looks like. Now I'm going to add my amethyst. So what I like to do sometimes when I design a necklace is go kind of like that, like a diagonal with my gemstones to have some kind of pattern in it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But let's see how this one's going to turn out. So I've got my pattern like that. With this, I'm actually going to keep straight across with a labradorite. So let's add this one. Keep going on with our bead and our tubes. And then I'm going to put on my citrine tube right across from my biwa pearl. I'm going to add my pearl like that. Let me bring this down. I need one more bead. A tube. And then I've got my peacock colored pearl through there. Okay, so here's our design. Putting the ends together, I'm going to bring the necklace down so it's centered. So I have my top, and then I have my center pearl, and I'm going to measure it. So this measures right here at the very end. This measures 16 inches, right? It's at the 8-inch mark. So this is 16 inches. But what I want is a 17-inch necklace. So I need to drop this down to 17 inches. And then with the top here, I need to add more beads to make, I need an inch on each side. So what I'm going to do is add a couple of tubes. I'm going to add a bead. For this side, and then for this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a couple of more tubes. And a bead. So now I should have 17 inches for my necklace. Yep, exactly 17 right here. This doesn't count, this is just the dangle. I'm using this toggle because it mimics my bail, and I think it's gonna look nice together. So let's take this toggle apart find the center. So put that on that side and this on this side. This toggle comes with a jump ring, so I'm going to put it back on my bar and close it up. Then I'm going to add my crimp bead to one side. I'm going to add my toggle through the jump ring. And back down through my crimp bead. And through my spacer bead. And pulling that so the wires are not crossed. I like to just to give a little bit of room up here. So I'm going to crimp here. Going into the back notch first. Rotating my pliers and then going into the front notch. Now I can cut off my wire. With this side, I'm going to add a jump ring to my toggle. I'm going to close it up. I want to make sure that my ends meet on my jump ring. So I'm going to wiggle it together and then pinch it because I don't want this wire to slip through. Oops, if there's an opening. I just lost my bead. Let me get another bead. Put my bead on. Now I'm going to put on my crimp. I'm going to slide on my toggle. Come back down through my crimp and my spacer bead and pull it. Okay, now before I crimp this, I'm going to check my necklace to make sure that there's no gaps in there and it looks good. And then I'm also going to pick it up and make sure that it's pliable, right? And it has movement because I don't want a stiff necklace. Okay, so this looks good. Now I'm going to get my crimper, coming in at the back notch, crimping it down once, rotating and coming up to my front notch, giving that a squeeze. Now I can cut off my excess wire. And there we have our beautiful fireball and gemstone necklace. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for joining me. See you again next time.